Imagine looking in the mirror just 30 days from now and not recognizing yourself. Not because you've changed your appearance or your job, but because something inside you has shifted. Your eyes are calmer, your posture steadier, your mind clear, no longer reacting impulsively, no longer getting lost in sudden bursts of anger or fear. Others will notice it even if you say nothing. But let's be honest, how many times have you tried to change only to fall back into old habits? How many mornings started with resolve only to end in regret? You're not alone. Most people don't change because they wait for motivation, but motivation is a liar. What you need is discipline. A simple decision to live like a Stoic, not chasing comfort, but choosing to train. Not seeking ease, but learning to face difficulty every single day. From that, you will become unshakable, a person even you won't recognize. 1. First, practice. Do something difficult. Every day, we're often taught to seek comfort. Modern life encourages us to optimize everything. Fast food, deep sleep, convenience, avoidance of pain, and rejection of fatigue. But if we look closely, it's this constant comfort that gradually weakens our spirit. When life becomes too easy, we begin to fear what's hard. We fear waiting, fear effort, fear stepping into the unknown, and soon we overreact to the smallest things, simply because we've grown too accustomed to a soft life. To those who follow Stoicism, the opposite is true. Train yourself to do something difficult every day. Not to punish yourself, not to prove anything to anyone, but simply to strengthen your inner core. Hardship is not the enemy. It's a quiet, loyal trainer. It does not harm you. It strips away your false layers so you can face yourself more honestly. Doing something hard daily doesn't need to be grand. It might mean waking up 30 minutes earlier, stepping out of bed when your body craves more sleep. It could be pouring cold water on yourself instead of the warm, soothing stream, to remind yourself that you control sensation, not the other way around. It might be skipping breakfast to feel real hunger, to realize that hunger doesn't kill you, and you are stronger than your impulses. These small acts, done with intention and consistency, gradually reshape your mental foundation. A Stoic doesn't wait for life to throw challenges before learning to stand firm. They seek adversity, not out of masochism, but out of readiness. When you begin the day with discomfort, you send a clear message. I do not live by instinct. I do not serve comfort. I am training. And that quiet declaration, repeated each morning, will forge a new version of you, one that does what is right, even when it doesn't feel easy. Real transformation doesn't begin with lofty goals, but with a simple choice. Choose what's hard over what's easy. Instead of curling up under the blanket, you get out of bed. Instead of reacting impulsively, you remain silent. Instead of procrastinating, you work even without motivation. Each time you break a brick of the old ego and build a piece of who you aim to become. What matters most is consistency. You don't have to become iron overnight. Just choose one action a day, one thing you don't want to do, and do it consciously. When difficulty becomes familiar, greater difficulty no longer frightens you, and when you're no longer threatened by challenge, you enter life with a different posture, calmer, steadier, and above all, less shaken by circumstance. That is the ultimate aim of doing hard things daily. Not to impress others, but to know deep down that in any situation you remain yourself. And that is a strength no one can take away from you. 2. Let go of the need to always be right. We often think that being right gives us the right to speak up, and when others are wrong, we feel obligated to correct them. Some part of us always seems eager to prove it, to show we understand more, see more clearly, and know the truth better than the person in front of us. But there's a truth that eventually becomes clear after many arguments. Most times we try to claim the right. What we end up with is not recognition, but tension, distance, and quietly fractured relationships. In Stoic philosophy, letting go of the need to be right isn't weakness. It's a profound form of self-mastery. Not everyone is wrong simply for disagreeing with you, and even if they are, speaking out to reclaim logic rarely brings anything good. A Stoic doesn't need to win an argument because they understand that the cost of being right is often the loss of peace. They choose silence not out of ignorance, but from knowing when words are no longer needed. When we let go of the need to be right, conversations stop feeling like battles and start becoming mirrors. Instead of seeing the other as someone to defeat, we see them as an opportunity for practice. Practicing humility, patience, and the power to stay silent without losing dignity. It's a kind of silence that isn't passive, but deliberate. A retreat not from weakness, but from knowing what's worth holding on to and what's best released. Silence in the face of error doesn't mean agreement. It's simply the wiser choice between a reaction that harms the relationship and a silence that preserves mutual respect. You don't need to argue to be understood. The truth is, most people don't absorb truth through debate, but through experience. And sometimes your silence lingers in their mind longer than any explanation would. Especially in close relationships, with family, a partner, colleagues. The ego that always wants to be right acts like a dull blade that slowly severs connection. The one who speaks the most isn't always the one in control, but the one who needs validation. The person who's anchored within doesn't need applause to affirm their worth. They know who they are, and that is enough. Training yourself to not win every argument is no easy task. The ego always wants to rise, whispering, "We can't let them think we're wrong." But if you know how to stop at the right moment, take a breath, and walk away with a quiet smile, you'll feel a kind of quiet power, that moment when you are no longer the ego's captive. When others say something untrue, let them speak. When someone misunderstands you, let time reveal the truth. And when you feel the urge to defend yourself, ask, between peace and this petty victory, what's truly worth more? Sometimes letting go of the need to be right isn't just a way to preserve harmony with others, it's how you keep your own soul at peace. And that's something no argument can ever win. 3. Each night, shrink the world. There are nights when you lie in bed, your body exhausted, your mind heavy with things that feel impossible to put down. An argument during the day, an unfinished task, an unanswered message, a worry about tomorrow. Everything spins in your mind as if not thinking about it would somehow cause something to go wrong. And in the middle of that stream of thought, you toss and turn. You try to lull yourself to sleep, but your mind refuses to settle. This is when you need an ancient but powerful remedy. Shrink the world. The Stoics, especially Marcus Aurelius, practiced this each night. He called it the view from above. Before sleep, he imagined himself looking down from the sky, first at the room, then the house, then the city, the country, and the entire planet spinning in the vast universe. When you look from above, the things you're anxious about begin to shrink. Personal conflicts, expectations, insecurities, they all become tiny in the grand scale of space and time. And you realize something simple but profound. Nothing is important enough to lose your sleep over. When you build this habit, Each night, just a few minutes of imagining yourself observing life from a higher vantage point. You not only relax your mind, but also reset the scale of everything in your head. You remind yourself that no matter how bad today felt, it's just one day out of thousands. And even if someone hurt you, their words are just a faint sound in the noise of life. You're learning to let go. Not because you're indifferent, but because you now see things in their true proportion. Modern science confirms this practice too. Imagining yourself within a vast scene helps reduce stress hormones, stabilizes heart rate, and promotes deeper sleep. But beyond the physical effects, the real benefit is in practicing a state of being, living with perspective. Not small in a self-deprecating way, but grounded in quiet humility. You accept that you cannot control everything, and from that acceptance comes the courage to relax without fear. You don't need a mountaintop or a view of the cosmos to do this. Just lie still, turn off the light, close your eyes, and picture a smaller version of yourself lying in a room, in a city, on a planet, drifting through endless space. Then ask yourself, will what I'm worried about today still matter a year from now, 10 years, 100? And the answer will always be the same. No. It is small, very small. And you are learning to see everything at its true size. Shrinking the world each night does not make you cold. On the contrary, it allows you to live more deeply the next day. When you're no longer weighed down by trivial things, you free your energy for what truly matters. And maybe that's the simplest way to fall asleep in peace, with a generous, wide, and distant view that reminds you the world is still spinning and you can rest now. 4. Reverse planning. Do nothing that makes you someone you don't want to be. When it comes to planning a day, most people list what needs to be done. Finish a project, exercise, call someone, learn a new skill, but Stoics view it differently. They don't just ask, what should I do? They also ask, who must I not become? This is reverse planning, not based on a to-do list, but on avoiding what pulls you away from the person you're trying to become. We don't fall because of a lack of action, but because of mindless actions. It's not that you don't know how to focus. It's that you let yourself drift into social media. It's not that you lack ideas, but that you get pulled into meaningless conversations, gossip, toxic comparisons. You don't lose clarity from having no goals, but from the blur of small, repeated daily choices. Then one day you wake up after a week, a month, a year, and no longer recognize yourself. Reverse planning is how you prevent that. Each week, take time to reflect and ask, if I keep doing what I'm doing, who will I become? This question doesn't demand more tasks. It calls for subtraction. You might write things like, don't respond to sarcasm. Don't explain yourself to those unwilling to understand. Don't scroll mindlessly. Don't check your phone before 9 a.m. Don't engage in conversations that lead only to judgment or negativity. These aren't glamorous choices, but they're the fences that protect your dignity and focus. Marcus Aurelius asked himself each morning, what am I doing today that I don't need to do? Because he understood that what damages the soul isn't a lack of productivity, it's living against your own values. A person doesn't need to do more to be strong. They just need to stop leaking energy into what makes them weaker. You don't need more motivation. You need fewer distractions, fewer unnecessary conversations, fewer habits of checking messages just to fill a void. And to do that, you need a clear picture of the person you refuse to become. Reverse planning is also a way to reclaim your identity. In today's noisy world, it's easy to get swept up in appearances, expectations, praise, recognition. But when you begin your day by defining what you won't let yourself get pulled into, you're doing something essential. maintaining your inner boundary. It's a quiet but powerful way of saying, I live by my values, not by the momentum of the crowd. If you keep doing this weekly, your life will begin to change in a very real way. Not because you're doing more, but because you're seeing more clearly. You no longer lose yourself in the trivial. You don't get derailed by temptations wrapped in comfort. And one day, others will look at you and not be able to name what's changed, but they'll feel it. You show up differently, steadier, more whole. And you'll know it's because you learned what to avoid, so you never become who you were never meant to be. 5. Eat one meal in absolute silence. In a world where everything moves at high speed, a meal seems to have lost its sacredness. We eat while working, scrolling on our phones, watching videos, replying to messages, or sometimes we eat without even realizing we're eating. Each meal becomes a moment filled by habit, no longer a ritual of life. And then we eat too much but still feel empty. Because what we truly hunger for is not calories, but connection with ourselves. The Stoic chooses to return to silence. They don't resist the noise of the world, but they consciously create quiet to remember they are still alive. And one of the most valuable, simplest moments of quiet is a meal in absolute silence. No music, no phone, no conversation, just you, the food, and the present moment. You don't need to meditate for hours to find focus. One meal fully present is enough. When you eat in silence, you begin to notice the smallest things you usually miss. You pay attention to the color of the food, the taste on your tongue, the sound of chewing, the rhythm of your breath between bites. More than that, you begin to see what's happening inside you. Thoughts rushing in, emotions rising, worries trying to intrude. And in that moment, without distraction, you're forced to look at yourself, unfiltered, unedited. Silent eating is a simple but powerful test. It tests your ability to be present. Can you stay with yourself? Can you accept the emptiness when there's nothing to scroll, no one to talk to, no noise to fill the void? If you can't sit still through one meal, can you sit still through a lifetime? The Stoic doesn't ask this to judge, but to invite you back to your essence, a living, breathing, feeling human being. This practice also helps you regain control over your body and behavior. When you eat with awareness, you eat slower, you know when to stop. You recognize which foods energize you and which ones leave you sluggish. You don't need to follow a strict diet. Simply being present with each bite, each breath, will tell you what serves you, and that mindfulness doesn't end at the table. It follows you into relationships, work, sleep, and your daily rhythm. You show up more fully everywhere just because you practiced showing up during one meal. Pick a meal, any meal in the day, to practice this. Turn off all devices, set your phone aside, no music, no chatter, no filling the silence. Just sit, eat, and observe. It may feel uncomfortable at first, even empty. But if you can make it through the first few minutes, you'll feel the peace you've long forgotten. And the surprising truth is, just one silent meal a day can begin to restore your connection with yourself, quietly, steadily, and with healing. A silent meal won't make you stand out loudly. It reveals nothing to the outside world. But in its simplicity and quiet, it makes you stronger each day. Because when you can sit with yourself without needing anything to distract you, you've touched a kind of freedom few ever find. Freedom from restlessness, from the fear of being alone, and from the habit of always filling silence with noise. And that is the beginning of a deeper inner life. 6. Turn those who annoy you into trainers. Throughout life, We will always encounter people who irritate us. It might be a judgmental colleague, a nosy relative, someone cutting in line, or simply a person who replies to your message with a coldness that makes no sense. These people can appear at any time, and our instinctive reaction is to push back, get angry, respond, complain, or quietly carry resentment. But the Stoic sees them differently, not as troublemakers, but as trainers, not as enemies, but as opportunities. Imagine that every time someone frustrates you, you're no longer swept away by emotion. Instead, you see them as a test sent to strengthen your mind. When someone insults you, it's a lesson in tolerance. When someone misunderstands you, it's a lesson in composure. When you're ignored, it's a lesson in letting go of ego. And when you're criticized, it's a lesson in listening and surrendering the urge to defend. The people who confuse, anger, and hurt you are pointing directly to the parts of you that are still unsettled, still unhealed. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The person who offends you is simply acting according to what they know. You can choose not to react." That line holds a core principle. You cannot control others, but you can fully control how you respond. And if you master that, each difficult person becomes a chance to train your stability. Instead of reacting emotionally, you pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what can I learn from this moment? In that very instant, you're no longer a victim. You've become your own coach. You don't need to thank them out loud, but you can write it down in a notebook, just one simple line. Thank you for helping me practice calm. Writing it down is a conscious act. It transforms a negative emotion into a lesson. It reminds you that you weren't hurt, you were growing. The more often you do this, the more you train yourself not to see others as sources of pain, but as mirrors reflecting your inner world. Of course, this doesn't mean tolerating toxic relationships or silently enduring harm. The Stoics do not encourage you to stay in poisonous environments. But before you walk away, extract the lesson. Before you cut ties, complete the training. Every interaction, even the worst ones, carries a message. And if you learn to listen, you'll never leave empty-handed. The world will never run out of people who frustrate you, but that's not the issue. The issue is, how will you respond? You can choose to live your whole life annoyed, letting others dictate your emotional state. Or you can choose a different path, seeing each difficult person as a teacher, a strict teacher, not gentle, but one who makes you unshakable. And when you master that, you'll understand. Peace doesn't come from avoiding those who upset you. It comes from no longer being controlled by them. 7. Burn your old selves to ash. We grow up with countless labels others place on us, and over time, we begin to place those labels on ourselves. I'm not good at communicating. I'm always anxious. I lack discipline. I ruin everything. These statements begin as passing thoughts, but repeated often enough, they become truths in our minds. We no longer see ourselves as beings capable of change, but as fixed containers, sealed shut by outdated labels we believe to be permanent. The Stoic understands that no sense of self is unchangeable. They are all temporary definitions, built from past experiences, worn-out beliefs, and old fears. Without awareness, we live our entire lives as limited versions of ourselves, not because we're weak, but because we never stop to ask, who am I, and who taught me to think this way? That's why one of the most powerful actions you can take on the path of inner training is to face your old selves and burn them down. You can begin by writing down every limiting belief you've ever accepted as true. Don't filter, don't rationalize. Just write them plainly. I'm not smart enough. I don't deserve love. I never finish what I start. Let these lines rise up so you can see them clearly, because what remains hidden still holds power. But once brought into the light of awareness, you can finally see them for what they are. Assumptions, not truth. Once you've written them, read each one aloud and ask yourself, where did I learn this? Is it still true? And if I no longer believe this, what would change? These questions begin to shake the foundation of your old self. And then, if you're ready, burn those pieces of paper. Not as a superstition, but as a symbol, a reminder that you no longer have to live as who you once were. Burning your old self does not mean denying your past. On the contrary, it's honoring your past by refusing to let it define your future. You don't have to be who you were yesterday. You can begin again at any moment, and the beauty is, when you peel away those layers of old identity, what remains is not an empty self, but a vast space where you can rebuild yourself by conscious choice, not unconscious habit. A strong person isn't one who clings to their identity, but one who has the courage to keep rewriting their own story. And burning your old self is the first chapter of that story, where you stop believing in what kept you small and begin to live as if you're rewriting yourself every day, with clarity, freedom, and truth. 8. 1 hour a day as a living statue. Imagine walking into a room and there sits a statue. No movement, no speech, no reaction, yet something about it makes you feel reverent. A silent presence that commands respect. A power that needs no display, a stillness that doesn't come from effort, but from deliberate calm. The statue says nothing, but its mere presence changes your posture, lowers your voice, and makes you feel as though you're standing before something sacred. The Stoics believed you could cultivate that quality, not by explaining or proving anything, but by living like a living statue for 1 hour a day. This doesn't mean being completely motionless, but intentionally doing everything with slowness, restraint, calm, and deep awareness. 1 hour each day, you become the embodiment of self-control. No rush, no performance, no emotional hijacking, just living, steady, deep, and quiet. During that hour, you might walk slowly around the room, work, wash dishes, or drink tea. But every gesture has intention. Every act is guided by reason. You don't let your mind wander. You don't speak unless necessary. You don't act out of reflex. Instead, you live as if a nobler version of yourself is watching, not to judge, but to remind you you can live with dignity, even if only for an hour. This kind of practice elevates reason to its rightful place. It requires no special setting, no recognition from others, only a commitment to yourself. For 1 hour a day, you don't play any roles. You don't have to be cheerful, busy, or productive. You simply exist, like a breathing statue. And in that silence, you'll begin to notice things you've always missed. A crooked thought, caught just in time, a hurried action, paused, a rising emotion, stilled before it took hold. That 1 hour is not a waste of time. It's the most meaningful investment you can make in yourself. Because once you learn to master yourself in moments of stillness, you'll be less shaken in moments of chaos. When you've grown accustomed to slowness and calm in a chosen hour, you'll carry it with you into the other 10, even when the world around you is full of noise. The Stoic does not seek to stand out. They seek to stand firm. And sometimes, in the hour you live like a living statue, nothing more, nothing less, you touch the highest form of strength, a strength not born from action, but from quiet inner control. a strength no one sees, but that you feel deeply within your own soul. 9. Before you sleep, write your own epitaph in one sentence. We often end our days with exhaustion, a few mindless scrolls through social media, or lying awake thinking about what's left undone. But the Stoic chooses a different ending, a small yet meaningful act, writing a single-sentence epitaph, not because they are nearing the end of life, nor out of obsession with death, but because they understand one truth. No one is guaranteed a tomorrow, and if today were the last, would you have the courage to say you lived it well? Writing your own epitaph each night isn't symbolic. It's a way of facing life with clarity. Just one sentence, short, unembellished, honest, that captures something truly important you learned or lived that day. Today, I didn't lose my temper. Today, I apologized instead of protecting my ego. Today, I stayed true to what I believe. Some nights it will be a light sentence, some nights it will carry weight, but whatever it is, it's the most honest summary of how you lived. Practicing this every night will help you see your day with greater clarity. No need for long journal entries or bullet points of achievements. Just one sentence. Enough to remind you that you are living with intention, aiming for something greater than the trivial, building a life you can leave behind with peace. The Stoic does not fear death. They only fear dying while still living thoughtlessly. Writing your epitaph is also a way to anchor meaning in the present. It reminds you that everything you do in a day, even the smallest action, has value if done with presence and sincerity. A kind word, a graceful no, a quiet gesture of goodness no one notices. Any of these could be the day's final sentence. You don't need to do something grand to live meaningfully. You only need to live truthfully, awake, and without losing yourself in the noise. As you collect these nightly epitaphs, over a month or a year, you'll have a spiritual archive. Each line like a stone laid into the foundation of character, virtue, and clarity. And if one day truly is the last, there will be no need for final words. What you leave behind will be a record of fully lived days, lines you once wrote, and the person you kept becoming. No one knows how many days they have left, but the Stoic doesn't need to know. They only need to be sure of one thing: if today is the last, it was lived without regret. And the nightly epitaph is a quiet declaration. I have lived. I was awake. I did not run. And that by itself is enough. 10. Repeat. One phrase every time. Difficulty appears. This is training. Life never promises things will go smoothly. You'll be misunderstood, rejected, insulted, hurt. There will be mornings when you wake up drained, afternoons stuck in unmoving traffic, long pressure-filled meetings, or messages that weigh on your heart. And whenever these things arise, you stand between two choices: be carried away or use them to train the mind. The Stoic chooses the second, and they need only one short phrase to steady their mind. This is training. 3 simple words, powerful enough to shift your entire outlook. When you repeat them, you stop seeing circumstances as unfair and start seeing them as lessons sent your way. You stop asking, "Why me?" and begin to say, "This is a chance to grow stronger." Every hardship, every discomfort, every challenge becomes a training ground for patience, calm, and self-mastery. Stuck in traffic for hours? This is training. Training your composure when nothing can be changed. Someone insults you in public? This is training. Training your silence and grace when your ego is challenged. A key plan collapses at the last minute? This is training your flexibility and ability to accept what's beyond control. When you view things through this lens, you stop seeing yourself as a victim. You become an apprentice, tempering your soul as a blacksmith tempers steel. Each blow is a chance to forge greater strength. Repeating, "This is training," isn't a way to suppress feelings. It's a way to reframe your awareness. You can still feel sad, angry, disappointed, but instead of letting those emotions rule, you remain the observer, returning your mind to its rightful role. Not to be swept away, but to be disciplined. Because it's not peace that builds you, it's how you respond when peace is absent. You can write this phrase down, place it where you'll see it, or save it as your phone's lock screen. And whenever confusion, pressure, or tension arises, pause, breathe, and whisper to yourself, "This is training." Training to not react on impulse. Training to not lose yourself in chaos. Training to become someone who can walk through life unmoved by what they cannot control. Because in the end, this is the essence of Stoicism. Not trying to change the world, but using the world, good or bad, to change yourself. And every time you repeat that phrase, you're reminding yourself that everything today is making you more unshakable than you were yesterday. I don't believe that after 30 days someone will magically become a completely new person. But I do believe that if you live with intention for 30 days, you'll begin to see the world and yourself with new eyes. No longer rushed, no longer reacting on impulse, no longer identifying yourself with old stories. Small, consistent actions each day will gradually shift the center of your life, from the outside in. You don't need anyone to acknowledge that. You just need to know that today you were a bit more steady, a bit more clear, and lived as if each moment was a chance to build inner strength. If what you just heard touched something within you, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next content. And wherever you are on this path, please remember, you don't need to become great all at once. You only need to be awake enough not to lose yourself, even for a moment. That alone is a worthy beginning. See you in the next video.